What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Scarlet Nexus. This is episode 4, and with me, as always, I have Bluespade.
I feel like, you know, that we... Okay, I mean, I know we've said this like several times before, but I think it's fair that we drop this review for Scarlet Nexus because it's not... I don't think it's really like it's fair for for me to continually force Chaos to do this on a weekly basis just because he hasn't had a chance to really play the game himself. And with me being the only one who's... Yeah.
I mean, like, I am trying to, like, watch it from an anime-only standpoint. But the problem is, like, I feel like the series wasn't made for people who, like, haven't actually played the game. And, like, I feel like that's kind of the problem with the series, like, as a whole. Or at least with the anime series, is that it seems like it's definitely just more to market the game and not so much to really meant to be watched as, you know, just as a show for people who have, you know, for people who have no idea about like the game or what happens in the game or anything, because they, like I said before in the last episode, like they don't really bother to explain a lot of the like a lot of the concepts, like different abilities the characters are using, or different terminology, or different groups or whatever. Like none of it's really explained, and they just kind of throw you into the plot, and you really have no idea what's happening and why what certain things are, and what you know, like with the last episode with the those characters like rebelling against like the OSF. Like we still don't really know a lot about like how the inner workings of the OSF or anything like that. But that was a lot of the reason why supposedly these characters were rebelling, was because of the OSF doing something, you know, doing sinister things behind the scenes, I guess, which we actually do get explained in what those things are in this episode. But my criticism about that is just it doesn't really hit as hard because it's just like, OK, well, we didn't really know much about the OSF in the first place, other than that they're just a defense force against the others, or whatever they're being called. So, I mean, that's all we really got to know about them. So, like I said, it just doesn't really hit as hard because that's all we really knew about this group. And, you know, like, I'm pretty sure for people who play the game already, they'd be like, oh, I completely understand what's happening here. But like I said, for people who haven't, they're just going to be totally in the dark. And that's kind of how I've been feeling about the series since the first episode. Is I'm just like,
yeah. I mean, I've noticed this too, because I really feel like they're just rushing through a lot of stuff pretty quickly, like they did in this episode in particular, because like some plot points do get glossed over most of the times, and some scenes kind of get rushed through from one scene to the next, and
I feel like there's a pacing issue as well, honestly. Like,
yeah, that's also the problem. I mean, like, even though, like, if I, you know, for someone like me who's played the game, like watching this, like, it wouldn't matter because I already know much of what, you know, what the plot's going to be moving forward. However, for people who haven't watched this, like you said, like, it's hard to really get a grasp of, like, you know, with the whole world building stuff of what the OSF is, what the, you know, what the different terminologies of, like, what Signet is, or something like that. Like Signet, like, for example, being like this world's version of, like, you know, a futuristic version of the internet, or of some sorts. But, you know, it just kind of gets glossed over at times, you know, without like properly explaining things too much.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also just a huge cast of characters. Whereas with a 50-hour RPG, like, there would be plenty of time for the game to actually introduce you to these characters. But with the anime, like, you know, even if you had like a full season, like you would actually have to, like, it really cut out a lot of characters, considering like the amount of characters that are in this show.
Yeah,
you know, and only develop like a few of them.
I mean, yeah, I still don't know whether or not this is gonna be like 12 or 13 episodes, or maybe it's gonna be 2 cores, because I mean, I've seen other anime series based on video games. I mean, Persona 5, for example, that's like, what, more than a 50 to 80 hour sort of game. However, they did spend, like, you know, at least a few episodes, like, you know, dedicating to certain certain characters in the main character's team.
Yeah, I mean they did this with they had also adaptations of Persona 3 and Persona 4 where they kind of pretty much did the same thing where they focused on certain characters, but obviously they cut out a lot of stuff. Like it's possible to do.
The only problem with this one is they're really just moving forward with the main plot line without delving in with like all the other characters that are being involved in this.
Yeah, I mean it definitely feels that way.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens in this episode, like picking up after the last one, is pretty much all the members of the OSF end up fighting each other. And then soon afterwards, Nagi ends up attacking both Kasane and Yuito, thanks to, I guess, Gamma in this episode refers this as to persona, what was that? Persona I forgot what it was.
You're getting confused.
Yeah, because it's a sort of brainwashing that the OSF does to keep their members loyal.
Oh, you mean Persona rehabilitation? I think is what
rehabilitation. Yeah. Personality rehabilitation. Yeah. So Nagi went through that after he ended up witnessing Naomi turning into the other in the last episode. So he ends well, of course, thanks to the brainwashing, he's going after both Kasane and Yuito, just pretty much cover up the whole incident. But of course, at the same time, what was it? Captain Seto and Gemma end up fighting one another. But of course, Seto ends up leaving the fight to go to stop Nagi from attacking both Yuito and Kasane. So he tries to fend him off for a bit, but of course he ends up getting killed soon afterwards by Nagi flinging more of his shuriken things towards Kasane and Yuito, and Seto ends up shielding him from that attack. And then and of course we see more of the scenes with Kasane just pretty much going over her whole red strings thing that keeps getting mentioned over and over again. Now for the red strings thing with Kasane, it's in this anime they kind of rush through it a lot.
I mean,
over and over and over again.
Going back to the same scene, with her seeing the that place they end up at in this episode, and they keep going back to it, but I'm still not sure of what the significance of it is. They don't really go over that, so they keep it's something they've done through from I guess the first first episode. They keep going back to that.
Yeah. So after Captain Seto's death, this pretty much triggers a reaction with Kasane activating her red strings, but at the same time, this also opens up a gigantic black hole over the highway, and it ends up sucking up majority of the soldiers that are in the battle. And of course, Luca tries to save several soldiers, including saving it was Gemma. Trying to remember everyone involved. I mean, it was Gemma, Hanabi, and Sugumi. Yeah, and of course, Captain Seto's body ends up getting sucked into the black hole. So that's pretty much the end of that scene. And then of course we finally see Kasane and Yuito in that same dimension that Kasane always sees, which involves the red strings. And then they end up getting separated by being teleported. Well, Yuito gets teleported back into the present timeline, and what happens to Kasane is her, Arashi, Kyoka, and Shiden end up getting teleported 50 years into the future.
Okay, LSC, that comes from you having knowledge of the game. I just figured they transferred. I'm sure they'll explain that in the next episode, but
yes.
Just from what I got from it was that they got transported to some other place. I mean, but I had no idea it was in the future, like, because they don't, of course, they don't say this at all. So
okay, because seeing as this is gonna be potentially our last review for this show, like I'm just pretty much gonna lay it all out there.
I mean, I will admit, like, that sounds interesting of them, like, having, like, you know, time travel and stuff. But again, like, there's just like this is just kind of happening, like, and you know, like, I don't know. I feel like the pacing is just totally off. Like, it's just like this. It feels like this should have happened like a little bit later and not like right now. But yeah.
So, but there is a reason as to why, with Kasane and the others, several other members end up being teleported 50 years to the future. Because if you notice that black hole up in the sky, it ended up expanding like 50 years into the future, and then ends up potentially destroying the Earth up to that point. So in the game, it's Kasane's mission to try to find a way to stop that from happening, while at the same time we see Yuito joining up with the other members. I think Yuito, Gemma, Hanabi, and Sugumi end up heading back to their hideout, and Gemma ends up giving them the rundown of everything that's happened, of why he ended up participating in that coup in the first place. So Gemma explains that he's in his mid-50s, but the only reason why he stays so young is because he's been taking like these anti-aging drugs, which which pretty much keeps him like from aging into an old man at this point. And the reason why like the OSF allows them to take these anti-aging drugs is to maintain their brain functions, because the older they get, the less likely their psionic abilities will perform up to their physical prime. Yeah,
and of course, like, he also gives his explanation for why they were rebelling against the OSF is because the OSF was like conducting these personality rehabilitations on people, where I guess they brainwashed them, like they did with Nagi.
Yeah, and also like intentionally tracking a lot of the population, and intentionally scouting out different recruits for them to use against fighting the others, which of course Gemma up to this point has known about for some time, but yeah, he was forced to keep quiet about it the longer he was there, and then he realized that he couldn't take any more of it, so he ended up deciding to team up with Karin to overthrow the government. However, he realizes that Karin has more ulterior motives to why he's also doing this.
Yeah, because he, of course, I guess, kind of ends up getting double-crossed by Karin in this episode too. Karin also ends up bringing down the Cynet and letting in all the others to come invade.
Yeah, and that's pretty much. No, actually,
well, we see that last shot of the man wearing the straw hat. Of course, and we found out that's Yuito in the future, which that's pretty crazy. So I mean, like I said, I kind of find it interesting they're doing that, but yeah, I don't, like you said before, it seems like they're blending Yuito and Kasane's story together in the anime, and they're not like just doing the separate story, the separate plot lines like they did with the game. But I mean, at the same time, I'm not exactly sure how they would do that for the anime. So I guess really this was their only option, was to just, mix the two of them together. But of course, as a result of that, it ends up being kind of a mess, because I mean, it kind of reminds me how like when certain studios might adapt like a visual novel and they just like throw in different elements from different routes together, and it's kind of confusing. It kind of feels like that's what they're doing here. But also with like rushing a lot of stuff too, because like I said, the pacing just feels like it's totally all over the place. So
I have to wonder like how the anime development team has gotten all this material at the same time as as the development of the game, because
it could be that they were maybe they were producing the anime alongside the game or something.
Probably, but honestly, usually we would normally see anime adaptations of video games like a year or two after it's been released, but then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, like, they decide to release both the anime and the game at the exact same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said before we started the review too. It just feels more like this was meant to be promotional material for the game and not like an honest adaptation of what's in the game. Because like with other anime based on games, sometimes they're actually like trying to make a decent adaptation of that game. But here it feels more like, it's like I said before in the other reviews, like it really feels like an afterthought. Like they just put the least amount of effort into it, and it's just made to market the game.
Also, I feel like there's also shameless promotion in there too, because I mentioned this like before, like they put in like these secret codes that you can input into the from the anime into the game to obtain special DLC items that you can use in the game as well. But it's just I don't know. I don't. It's a clever marketing strategy, but it's just at the same time you're not. You can't really have a good anime adaptation if you're not properly adapting the story this way. Yeah,
I mean, it just doesn't really feel like they were trying to, like faithfully adapt the story. I mean, based on what I'm seeing, but I mean,
it's close, but it's not. I mean, I recognize like certain scenes that that's happening in this episode, but it's just like the way the episodes are structured. Like you said, it's a pacing issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not much else to say about the series. Like, I mean, I've already commented on this, but like, I mean, and this episode just doesn't really make it any better. But like, the fight scenes in this are kind of bad. Like, I honestly just don't really think I don't know. Like, the animation seems very like stiff, and there's just a lot of speed lines, not really a lot of fluidity in the animation or the character movements. So the fight scenes just kind of like don't really feel that good to watch or anything. Like, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't look that good, to be honest. Like, and of course you see a lot of CG characters in the background and stuff, which I can't get on to too much for doing that, but the fight scenes in and of themselves are just not that great. Like, and it feels like this is supposed to be like sort of an action heavy episode, and I don't really get that feeling watching the fight scenes. They feel very like uninteresting to watch, like just because of the way they're animated, which is not like, it's not necessarily the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's not like, it's not really that good. Like, it's just it doesn't look that good to me.
I just feel like this anime is more of a like
which I feel like is also in contrast to the game too, because like from what I've seen of the game, it does look really good, like in terms of just at least the in-game, like, when you're fighting and stuff, and even just the cutscenes, they look just much better than what I'm seeing from the anime.
Because the way the game works is like it's separated into chapters, and each between each chapter you go into a hideout, hanging out with like all your other teammates, and then one by one you hang out with them, and it initiates a cutscene in which like you have a conversation with that said character you want to hang out with. You can give gifts to them, and then they give you their personal stories of why they joined the OSF, like why they're doing what they're doing, and then you'll get a sense of like who they are in the end, and then you'll grow more attached to them. Here, like they're just skipping over that completely, and then maybe they'll just probably throw in some things here and there, like what Gemma did in this episode, but it's not in much of detail of like of like how the game handled it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really expect the side characters to get any development. I mean, like, I feel like if they were going to try to properly adapt it, and they have such a huge cast of characters, they should have at least tried to do that with like a few characters, but it doesn't even feel that way with like the main cast, that they really get that much development at all. I just don't really, I mean, like, and in the first place, I don't feel like some of them are even that interesting characters, like Yuito or even Kasane. Like, I feel like so far at least, like they feel kind of one-dimensional.
I feel like people will have a much better appreciation for Yuito and Kasane if they actually play through the game instead of having to watch this. Because
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case.
Yeah, because like they have their backstories. Like you like they come across as like, just, a standard protagonist, and like Yuto just comes off like, as a typical good guy. Kasane comes off as like as this cold looking individual, but like the more you learn about them, like in within the game's plot, you'll understand a lot more better. Here, I don't know how they're gonna end up handling this, like depending on how many episodes they're gonna end up adapting.
I mean, it depending. Yeah, if this is going to be like we might have assumed, if this is going to be a 13 episode series, then I really don't know how they're going to do that. And I mean, like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it is.
Because okay, there's like 4 episodes left, and assuming this is only like 1/3 of it. This point of the story, it's like only 1/8 of the story. I think this is only like there's 12 chapters of this game, and I think this is only like chapter 3. This is chapter 3 of the storyline. So
yeah, I'm kind of wondering how they're going to do the rest of it. Like, are they going to, if it's only going to be 13 episodes, like, are they going to just rush through like some of these other chapters just to get to the last chapter? Like, I mean, they could do it that way.
It's possible they'll end up skipping over one another, but the problem is they're trying to adapt both Yuito and Kasane's storyline, which like both storylines together is 50 hours together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how they're gonna end up handling this, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really anyone's guess at this point.
Yeah,
I just don't really have too much else to say about the series, though. It's honestly, I guess the only word I could say is so far it's just kind of underwhelming. I don't know. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'll still watch it just to see how this show plays out compared to the game, because seeing as I already played through it, and I'm interested in like how they're gonna end up handling this. But for people who haven't played the game, just just play the game first before watching this, because you'll have a better much more appreciation than having to watch the anime.
Yeah, I would have to agree. But yeah, so that's probably going to be our last episode review for Scarlet Nexus. Yeah, like I guess in the comments, just let us know what you guys think of the show so far, if you agree with my what I have to say about it. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to say about the series.
I mean, I wish it could be a little bit better, in some aspects, but I don't think. I think it's a little bit asking for too much, considering like how much is already being shown up to this point, and I don't know if like they're gonna get back to that.
Yeah, yeah. But that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.